Okay. And that should be us on. Okay, dokie. Hey guys, back again. Thank you very much for joining us for the Scotland Ireland preview this week. I've got on with me the guy from Four Province Rugby page on Facebook. I chat with him fairly regularly there, and he's a great guy as well. Knows his knowledge on Irish rugby, so I thought I'd get him in for a chat here. Welcome to Conor Broomfield. How are you doing, Conor?
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for having me on your show tonight. Yeah, I'm really good. Really good. Looking forward to a big game on Sunday. It's a massive clash for both our guys and your guys. I think.
Absolutely.
It's a real must-win game. I think for both coaches. You guys had the unfortunate incident of a red card against Wales.
Well, we've both got something in common there. So
we do. Hopefully, we can both keep 15 on the field now this Sunday.
Aye. But yeah, well, that's obviously always a hope with how referees are getting so picky about the head contact these days, which it's understandable. But sometimes I'm thinking, maybe I don't know, just like the slow motion replay and that the way it gets used and a bit skeptical about. But anyway, just talk about where you think Ireland are at right now, going into Sunday's game. Obviously, you could argue a little bit unlucky at times against Wales, play most of the game with 14 men. I thought actually you played quite well against France, but maybe sort of letting down with the innovation in attack, and against Italy obviously racked up plenty of points. But where do you think Ireland are at right now, from your perspective?
Where are we at right now? I don't like using the word transition because I think it's a bit lame. It gets bandied about very easily, and it usually just means the team isn't as good as it used to be. We can't really say we're transitioning if we're either. Not as much as we should be anyway. If we're still playing the Johnny Sexton in every match and starting Cian Healy, and not really looking for alternatives in some of them critical positions where we need to find replacements. But I think there are clear signs of the game evolving and developing. I think particularly when you look at the forwards, I think Paul O'Connell's had a huge influence on the side. I think our line out has become a weapon again, and we're attacking the opposition line out very well. Our ruck speed is the best of all the teams in the Six Nations. I think most of our rucks are being completed in under 3 seconds. And it's about taking that forward now, using that platform to develop our back play and make us more potent in attack and a bit less predictable. I think the general perception, you'd probably agree with me, is that we're very predictable. We can be tough to beat sometimes, but we're just a very straightforward looking side. Yeah. And I think for this side to push on and to be able to overcome the likes of England have been a major turn in their side the last few years. We need to be doing things a bit differently. We need more variation. Mm-hmm. We need a better plan of attack. So where we are at the moment, I think we're doing a lot of things very well, but we're still a bit short. When you look past the pack, I think. We got the tries against Italy. We ran in nearly 50 points, mm-hmm. But context there is that Italy are very poor at the moment.
Yeah.
So where we're looking to develop is get that fast tempo, get our centers into play more, and see if we can start creating chances for our outside backs.
Yeah, because it's obviously you've got a lot of talent there. I think that's where I do have, like, from a Scottish perspective, some worries about your centers if you can get a platform, of course, because as we know, like Henshaw, he can be very good at getting over the gain line of first or second phase ball just to give you as a platform to go to. And then you've got Ringrose, who, you know, sort of his the angles he's able to run at, and, you know, what he can do when he has the ball in hand. Like, you know, he's as dangerous as any. And I think quite rightly, most folk are tipping him to be the Lions 13 right now. Again, whether that tour goes ahead or not still remains to be seen. So, but no, I think no. But and also obviously got Tag Byrne as well, who's really been a bright spot up front for Ireland, the Six Nations. I've been really impressed with him. I know he got a lot of hype after the Italy game, and, you know, quite rightly that he manned the match. But I think also, again, no disrespect to Italy, as you were saying, in the context, it's Italy, and, you know, I think the real, you know, even though he did very well against Wales in the second row, but the test for him in the back row would be against, you know, like sort of you know, Scotland or England, where it'll be a lot more challenging for him. You'll have probably a lot more to do. Not that he doesn't work hard, but it'll be a lot more challenging for him, I'd say. But with the teams picked, I'll go with Scotland team first. Obviously, we've made 3 changes. Ireland have made 3 changes as well. Our changes: WP Nell, of course, replaces Xander Fagerson, who's suspended. Jamie Ritchie back in the back row, and Sam Johnson comes in at 12. Looking at the Scotland team, though, what would you say are the bits from an Irish point of view you'd be worried about or looking to?
What we'd be worried about is and I guess how it will affect our game plan is the biggest concern with Scotland is allowing Finn Russell dictate the pace of play and play his natural game, because if he's allowed to do that, it's going to be a long afternoon for Ireland, and it'd be very hard to stop. When he's at his creative best, he's probably one of the best in the world playing that role. If you look back, the recent history of this clash, Ireland have had quite a bit of success against Scotland. I think we've won the last 5 on the bounce.
I don't think we've beaten you. I think we've only beaten you once since 2010, something like that. It's been a shocking record from our point of view, but
yeah, 2013 and 2017. You better.
2013. Sorry, I forgot about that one. Pardon me.
Aye. I think four times overall in the Six Nations from 21. So that's like it's a role reversal from when I started watching rugby in the late 80s and right through the 90s. We could not buy a win against Scotland.
I bring back the 90s. I say, Hazel.
Please don't. Not yet. I'm sure the pendulum will swing back at some stage. But so where we've had success against Scotland in recent years, and why we've had the upper hand is usually down to our forwards, causing you a lot of problems, getting the upper hand at the set piece, retaining possession, and basically grinding Scotland down, starving you possessions, stopping Finn Russell, getting any good possession to play with. And sometimes he can get a bit frustrated, Finn, when things aren't going his way. So that will probably be our game plan again. I don't expect anything out of the ordinary, any experimentation with fancy back moves or anything. I expect us to try and play largely, I wouldn't say 10-man rugby, but certainly a forward orientated game, and play to our strengths and try and keep the ball away from you guys. Whether we can do that now is another matter, but I think that'll be the plan.
Yeah, because I think actually that's where we improved against you in the 2 games we played against Ireland last year. I mean, up until the yellow card of the Autumn Nations Cup, I thought we were mostly the better team that day. And the last year's Six Nations, I thought that, up front was definitely where we got a lot more parity against Ireland than we had done before. And Jamie Ritchie being back in the side, I think will definitely help us at the breakdown, because I think, I know a lot of folk talk about the red card with the Wales game, but I think Jamie Ritchie was a bigger miss than folk are saying he was, because him and Hamish Watson as our two flankers, just what they sort of complement each other so well, like what they bring to their ability at the breakdown. And just how much their havoc they can cause the opposition there is just sort of is immense. And I think we sort of, I mean, I know Hamish Watson still had an excellent game against Wales, but I think we missed sort of Jamie Ritchie's nous alongside him to really complement
he's just
that.
a very, very smart player, isn't he? He's and the Autumn International actually, what did they call it? The Autumn Nations Cup. You were missing Hamish Watson that day. I think they rested him or something for some reason. And you had Jamie Ritchie at 7, where I don't think he's as effective there. Hamish Watson is a huge handful, though. He's the danger man. If we're trying to pick and go all afternoon, he's going to cause us a lot of problems unless we're really measured and exact on what we do.
That's going to be so I'm just saying that's going to be a really fascinating back row battle is the battle of the back rows. Because I mean, again, it'll be a real big test of Tad Byrne as to how he could how he'd handle both Ritchie and Watson around the breakdown. And of course, then we've got Stander against Matt Fagerson. Sort of, you could argue in some ways similar types of player, but I think Stander's obviously got the more experience and probably a bit more nous. And on paper, you'd say he's got the upper hand there. But again, so that's going to be interesting to watch, I'd say. But also, I think it's from the team we've picked. We've picked Finn Russell at 10, but we haven't really picked a replacement 10, which I think is kind of I'm not sure about, because I know Stuart Hogg's played 10 before, but I mean, he said he doesn't enjoy playing there. But I mean, I wouldn't. Let's put it this way: if Finn Russell breaks down after 10, 15 minutes, I wouldn't want to be throwing Stuart Hogg straight into the 10 jersey right away if that happens. So it's a risk on Gregor Townsend's part, I'd say.
It's a big gamble, Kyle. Yeah, it's a big gamble. I saw Leinster do it recently. It was over Christmas. We had Sexton starting, and we ended up playing a centre with Jimmy O'Brien with very little experience at 10 in that position in a big interprovincial match, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, what's the story there? I know Adam Hastings is unavailable, and
I think it was just more to try and get, because Hugh Jones has been playing well for Glasgow, and the 2 games he's come on, he's done well as well, and he hasn't really done anything to warrant getting dropped. Then obviously Darcy Graham, I think sort of is a very as he showed against Wales, when he has the ball, he's a very dangerous player. I think they wanted to get him in the squad as well. But also wanted to get Sean Maitland in there as well, and he's another one who's done absolutely nothing to warrant being dropped, and is probably in terms of the brains of a rugby player, he's probably the smartest back 3 player we have, so to put him in was pretty much a no-brainer. So I think that's why just a difficulty of who do you drop more than anything else. But again, it's a big gamble if Finn does break down in the first 10, 15 minutes or something. But touch wood, that doesn't happen. But with the team Ireland have picked up, you've obviously the 2 front rowers changes there. Are you surprised that Farrell hasn't stuck with Ronan Kelleher? Because I thought he. I am
a bit. I think. I can see what Farrell is doing. He's gone for a very heavily loaded, a very powerful, dynamic set of bench forwards. You've Dave Kilcoyne, great ball carrier, Ronan Kelleher, great around the pitch. Mm-hmm. Andrew Porter, explosive.
Yeah.
A young guy called Ryan Bird. You probably haven't seen a huge amount of. This will be just his 2nd appearance if he comes off the bench. He's 6'8".
Yeah.
He's very fast, very athletic. So you've got all these guys on the bench, and Jack Conan, of course, number 8. You've all these guys on the bench, and he's gone with the more experienced starting pack with Cian Healy, 105 caps. Kelleher now, in spite of this tactic of going for the loaded bench, I thought Kelleher deserved to start. Mm-hmm. To me, he's a much better player than Herring. Herring is very solid at the line out, but doesn't offer a huge amount elsewhere. So I don't know. Obviously, Kelleher is going to get time off the bench, but I am a bit disappointed he didn't start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you look at that, like I'd actually say on paper that Ireland's bench is looking a bit stronger, especially up front. If you know, because again, Kelleher, if he does what he does, he can be as he showed against France, it can be very effective as an impact substitution. Same with the other two props you mentioned and Ryan Baird, sorry. So yeah, no, I mean there is you do have the options of effective substitutions later on in the game. When, as we know, like packs generally start to tire a bit, fresh legs come on, and I'd say on paper, Ireland do have the upper hand there. I'm a bit surprised with Scotland though that we've not picked Sam Skinner in the match day 23. I wasn't expecting to start, but with his form for Exeter, I would have at least expected him to be on the bench. Gregor Townsend's gone for Grant Gilchrist and Nick Hainan as our back five replacement options. So, I mean, not that they're bad players, but I definitely would have had Skinner in there somewhere.
Yeah. I was on one of the Scottish forums today or yesterday, sorry, after the team was announced, and there was a lot of people upset that Skinner wasn't involved now, and he was going for Gilchrist. I think there's a perception there among some people that Gilchrist is a bit soft. Would that be right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, he's got a decent work rate on him, and he's a decent line-out forward, but he's not. I mean, especially an X factor like second row saying, whereas Skinner, like he can play, obviously he can play like in second row, or he can play in the back row. And I think, sort of he offers, I think, a lot more with what he does. And of course, he plays alongside Johnny Gray at Exeter too. So, I think if that would have been an impact sub, that would have worked very well if he'd come on for Scott Cummings. I mean, Scott Cummings has done nothing to deserve being dropped either. So he's, obviously was always going to start. But I mean, bring Skinner on maybe alongside Johnny Gray or in the back row somewhere. I think that would have been, a good option, as I said. So yeah, surprise, but we've gone for who we've gone for. So
yeah, but yeah, it is the same starting pack that played against England, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
and they were fantastic that day. In fairness, I guess you just have to try and match that level of intensity and bring that emotion to, and you.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Yeah, I mean, but also because this is where I do have my worries, because I think we have got it in us to at the very least match Ireland up front, and if we can get enough ball in the Ireland's 22 and ping yous back, so be it. But I have worries about how we control the scoreboards. Just because against England, even though we absolutely battered them throughout the game, we only won 11-6. And against Wales, we were set 17-8 up, and then we had a penalty in front of the post, and we chose to try and go for the scrum to try and then we got caught with an offside collision there. So I mean, those little things, it's like, I mean, it's like, sort of sometimes I think actually Ireland do this quite a lot as well. I notice, like, when you're looking to get the tries on the board, sometimes you just keep going for the corners, or you just go for the scrum, and you sometimes just got to think, look, you need someone just to come in to say, look, guys, just calm down a bit here. Let's just just keep the scoreboard ticking over and just keep the points going, and then we'll worry about the tries later. And I think both teams, like, because I've seen Ireland do this a lot as well. Both teams have a habit of doing that, and it has a tendency to come back and bite us. So
yeah, there's a risk reward there. You have to think if you're keep going for these tries and you're only scoring a small percentage at a time, maybe it's more prudent to take your penalties.
Yeah, I mean,
there was definitely a phase there towards the end of the Schmidt era, and probably at the start of the Farrell, where we weren't taking kicks at all nearly. We were just going for tries at every opportunity. But I think they had a chat about that, and there's a bit more of a balance now. So how's the weather looking for Edinburgh for Sunday?
I've not really checked at the moment. It's looking okay, but there's forecast rain tomorrow up here, so fingers crossed that is only for tomorrow and won't be for Sunday. But knowing Scottish weather, you can never predict how.
Yeah, same as Ireland. I know.
Aye. Yeah. So, but no, I mean, hopefully we do get a dry-ish day, and we do see some decent rugby, and yeah, just like I said, just hope it's a good game. But do you have any further thoughts on it? Like, how do you think it's going to go, and any predictions?
Um, how would you think it's going to go? I told you how Ireland will try and play. I think we'll try and get that strong platform up front. I think we'll try and hold the ball, and try and grind Scotland down. And I think we've some the personnel and the coaching in the forwards to implement that game plan if it goes well for us. Often these Six Nations matches, there's not a huge amount between the sides, and it's often who brings the greatest emotional energy on the day determines how a match will go. I think there's a way Ireland want to play, and there's a way Scotland will want to play. Scotland will look to play with tempo, and they look to get that, match that aggression you showed against England. And if you do, it's going to be very hard for our guys. If we get that stranglehold up front early on, I think conversely it'll be harder for you guys. I don't think there's one guy I would like to see involved this Sunday, and that's Josh van der Flier. Will Connors had a great game against Italy, and he's great at chop tackling, and he's a decent carrier. But Josh just covers so much ground, and he's a massive work rate, and he's very fast around the pitch. And I think we could have done him, because we're not going to keep the ball away from Scotland all afternoon. You're going to get possession, and you're going to get some good ball, and he's always first to the breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, I heard I saw a Paul O'Connell interview the other day, and he said that he was injured. That's why he's not playing just now.
Yeah. He's on return to play protocols.
Oh, okay,
unfortunately. So we're just lacking that bit of speed that we could have done with for this particular match.
Yeah. Not on you.
Yeah, I'm sorry he's missing, but I think we've a pretty strong team now. Happy with the pack overall. Jamison Gibson Park now is the strange one. A lot of Irish pundits and commentators tell you they'd rate several other out halves, like John Cooney, Luke McGrath. As I've said, I've no doubt, sort of on your forums and such. Like, what has John Cooney done to upset Andy Farrell? Because I would say, like, aside from Antoine Dupont, he's probably been the most informed 9 in the Northern Hemisphere in the past year and a bit. So, and it's a strange one. We get this every day, and I don't really know. I know he wasn't a favourite of Schmidt's either. Schmidt very
under Schmidt though, it was a bit more understandable, because you had Conor Murray, who was from say about 2015 to 2018, he was definitely the best scrum half in the world. Then he got injured, and he hasn't really been the same player since then. So a bit more understandable there. But I just think with the way he's been playing the past year or so, how he's not even in the 23, it's just mental in my
I don't know. I don't get it. He's not even making the wider squads these days. You've got Murray, Gibson Park, and Casey are the top 3 now for Farrell, and poor Cooney isn't in the picture at all. So it must be very disheartening for him. He's had a funny career. He left Leinster when he was about 23. He was never really better than third choice at Leinster. Went to Connacht. He had his injury problems, and he was behind Kieran Marmion. And then he went to Ulster in his late 20s, and his career just took off. And he's been exceptional for them. Very good again, even in defeat at the weekend against Leinster. So I don't know. His basics are pretty solid. He's a good kicking game. Great support lines, scores lots of tries.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's again, just something I'm on board with. A lot of your fellow Irish folks there. It just kind of seems absolutely baffling. But with regards to this game, who do you think is going to win? You think it's going to be close, or do you think it's going to be?
I'm predicting Ireland are going to win this one. I'm not, I'd like to think I'm not being biased, but there's always a certain amount of bias.
On you go, mate.
I just see an easier path to victory in this match, given our history in the last few years and the areas we're strong in compared to the areas maybe you're not so strong in. I think we can implement our game plan a lot better than we would be able to against England, even though you're playing much better than England at the moment. I think we have a better chance of beating you guys. And possibly England have been a major turn on their side in the last few years. They just know how to play against us and know how to beat us.
Not with the way they're playing right now. I have to say.
Maybe not. I just have a horrible feeling they come good against us after losing to everyone else. So I can't see it. I think we've a very good pack out, and I don't think we'll do anything too elaborate. And I hope we can just that's enough to squeeze us over the line. Mm-hmm. Not by much. I'm predicting Ireland by 5 points.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to predict Scotland by 5. I'm going to put my keep my bias there, but no, I think it will be a close game. I think Ireland will try to, as you say, they will try to squeeze us up front as much as possible, try and suffocate us, not give us any free ball. But also, I think if we can be smart enough, make sure we're trying to keep Ireland as far down as 22 as possible. I'm expecting Ireland to try and do similar to us to make sure we're not in positions where we're going to be effective, but also knowing when to make sure we're spreading the ball when there's opportunities on. So, but again, I'm hoping it could come down to who's got the most point in attack, because if so, I'd pick Scotland. But if it was to come down between an arm wrestle over 80 minutes, I think Ireland. I think we can match you, but I think I'm talking about over the whole 80 minutes. I think just looking on paper, Ireland might just have a little bit too much for us there. But again, I think it's more or less a toss of the coin as to who wins. It could come down to a penalty or one silly mistake or one try, and that could decide it. Yeah. So
sometimes one of the teams just gets that bit of momentum in games like this. I think Scotland get a bright start. I think you go a couple of scores up early in the match, 10 or 12 points. I think it's going to be difficult for us. You look at Ireland performances over the last, probably going back to the start of the Schmidt era, we very rarely turn matches around when we go behind early on or go 2 or 3 scores behind. The cornerstone of our success has probably been getting ahead, grinding down the opposition, and strangling the life out of the game. Yeah, it's why a lot of neutral rugby supporters don't often like watching us. We're probably not the most exciting team around, but that's a strategy that's brought us some success.
Yeah, but again, obviously it brought him, as they say, it brought you success, but he does get to a point where I don't think Farrell's quite I don't want to use the word grasped it, actually, because I don't think he's necessarily a fool or a bad coach, but hasn't really put the plans in place to take it that next stage, which he needs to do. Because again, sports in general, it doesn't stand still. You can play the same way I've got success, but it does get to a point where you need to evolve. And because that's what I was thinking of us, under Gregor Townsend initially, where we were just too often we were trying to throw the ball wide, and then it was only after the World Cup we actually kind of got coaches in who made us a bit more pragmatic, give us a bit more steel, and made us realize more that we have to actually graft. We've got to be a lot more solid in defense, because that's I mean, whether you like it or not, that's the way you win. You win, and at very least compete in rugby matches these days. So that's what we, from our end, what we had to do. We had to go the more.
I think the players have to buy into what's going on as well.
Absolutely,
they have to believe in the system and the coaching, and it has to be legible for them. And I think what's happening at the moment with Ireland is the forwards are buying into a game plan that's been overseen by Paul O'Connell, and they're taking on board. You can see every match that they're improving and doing a few things.
Because your 3 games so far, I think, you can't say it's been a lack of effort or a lack of commitment from your pack at all.
No,
I think, on the whole, it's like the intensity's been absolutely there. It's just those details and ability to be clinical and, maybe little mistakes. Because
you see, we don't have a Paul O'Connell coaching our backs. We've Mike Cash coaching our backs, and I'm not sure he's at the same level as Paul O'Connell, or I'm not. If he has a game plan and tactics, I'm not sure the players either understand him or believe in what he's trying to get him to do, because there's, I don't know, a lot of people would say there's no discernible planning with the Irish backs, which is probably a bit harsh, but we certainly haven't seen huge improvement there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is though, Conor, also with Mike Cat, he's also come out and didn't he say that sort of more of the onus was the players, where he basically said, oh, it's more, which I can understand from a point where he's coming from, because you do want the players to think for themselves. You want them to be situations on the pitch where you think, okay, if this is not working, we go to this. But at the same time, you think he, as a coach, he's got to know this himself as well. He's got to have the ability to think, okay, right, plan A is not working, we go to this plan, or sort of if something happens here and it breaks down, we revert to this and that, sort of. So I mean, I understand, put more responsibility on the players, but as a coach, you've got to have some nous of this yourself. That's it.
Yeah, Kyle, there was a big backlash to them comments made by Mike Cash, and there was a feeling he was throwing his players under the bus. And
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, I mean,
a good coach, a good coach or manager in any sport doesn't make comments like that about his players or put all the blame on them. He puts their hands up. Even Eddie Jones, for he's not always the most likable of characters to everyone, but he always takes it on the chin himself and puts his hand up and says it's my fault. Alex Ferguson in another sport in football was famous for that. He'd never blame his players. He'd always take the heat off them, take the pressure off them, and get the media looking at him and talking about him, and then work away with his players behind closed doors. And if there was given out to be done, or fingers to be pointed, it'd be one-on-one behind closed doors and training, not in front of the media. And it's often, I think it's often a sign of frustration of what you're trying to do, or what you're trying to implement isn't working. So you're kind of you kind of feel frustrated, or your ideas aren't getting across, and when you're pressed on it then by the journalists, you kind of react. Maybe that was what was happening there. But either way, we need to see clear signs of what Mike Cat's trying to do with the backs.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, I think because I think with the Scotland point of view, again, we had before we have Steve Tandy. I'm going to talk about defense now. We had Steve Tandy, we have him as our defense coach now. We had a guy called Matt Taylor prior to that. And with his defensive strategy, there was just so often you just hadn't a clue what we were trying to do, or what the system was. And I think, I don't know, we conceded something ridiculous like 30 or 40 tries in 2019 or something like that. Something absolutely ridiculous like that. But then Steve Tandy came in, and you could just tell, sort of with, his abilities as a coach was clearly evident. Like, he knew how to organize us. He knew how to tighten us up, and we became a team that a lot. I mean, last year's Six Nations, we conceded the fewest amount of points of all the nations. That just showed, like, sort of we can, even if it's not always the most exciting rugby to watch, as you'll know yourself, like, with Ireland, it's maybe the pragmatic side. It's not always the prettiest side, but if you're wanting to, make gains in international rugby, you need to have the basics of that, the seeds of that in place.
You need structure.
Yeah,
you need some structure.
Expand out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're at right now with Scotland.
Yeah, no, and it's going very well for Scotland. I think it's a massive game for both teams. I think you've a lot of guys there now that they're at their peak. They want to start winning things, don't you? The likes of Stuart Hoggies, Finn Russell, Johnny Gray.
Yeah.
They've Hamish Watson. They're all hitting an age now where they're probably at their peak, and they want some tangible rewards for all these.
Yeah,
absolutely. All these years of service they've given their country.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, from a Scottish point of view, like, sort of, I think our benchmark now has to be every Six Nations 3 wins minimum, and anything below that should be seen as, not successful. I'm sure you're similar with Ireland, although given the success you've obviously had in the last 10 years or so, you'd be hoping to be like at least competing for the championship.
Well,
almost every
we'd certainly take 3 wins this year anyway. We can't get any more.
Well, only 2 more games left, so yeah. I mean,
I know what you're saying. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of another point. There's a lot of pressure, and this is something maybe not everyone outside of Ireland will know, but there's huge pressure on our coach to get results in the Six Nations. It's the absolute bread and butter to them. It affects attendances and ticket sales, and most of all sponsorship. So it's made clear to their head coach when they take over that the Six Nations is paramount, and maybe that's why we don't do so well in the Rugby World Cups. There's not the same emphasis going into them, but it's so that kind of gives you a backdrop to possibly why you don't see much experimentation, or why our team is a bit slow to evolve and transition and bring younger players in. You don't see them happening so much in the Six Nations.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought I'd share that with you because it's a big talking point in Ireland, and something you see it's talked about in a lot of the forums. Just how that affects how we play in the Six Nations, and how the team evolves, and why it's so slow to change at times.
Yeah, no, I think you've had that like model fairly similarly for like the last couple of decades, because you can argue, because I remember, like, since I started watching rugby, like late 90s, early 2000s, Ireland like always seemed to have a bit of a habit of keeping players on. You could arguably keeping some players on maybe a little bit too long, like older players on that. And you've always kind of had that model. Sometimes it's worked, other times it's been like, okay, maybe there's a few of these players that have been kept on a bit too long. With Scotland, on the other hand, last 20 years we've just been we're just glad that we're kind of at a point now where we're not thinking, oh, it's only good if we beat Italy and don't get bottom. So I'm not I'm pleased we're like at least there, but there is with our game there is a lot of problems going off the pitch with certain political games or political things, and our grassroots isn't as strong as it could be as well. But I could do a whole video on that.
Yeah,
I'd be rambling on, so I don't want to get into too much of that. But we just talk very quickly what you think is going to happen in the other 2 games.
The Wales Italy match. Obviously, it's very, very hard to see past the Wales win, and attach a very comfortable Wales win most likely.
Yeah.
Although they do have a little stumble there the odd time, Wales, but they nearly always get past them.
It should be Italy, England, France.
Italy, it's frustrating. They have some great young backs there, Garbisi and Varney, especially a halfback. Very exciting young talents. But they need a platform to work off. I know they're missing some players that are injured at the moment, which is a shame. But I just think Wales will do a job for them up front, and they've that guy Louis Rees-Zammit, of course, and it's just having a phenomenal debut Six Nations season, and we'll probably see him on the scoreboard again on Saturday. So I'd probably be looking at a Wales win. Well, Ireland bet them by Italy by 38. I think France by 40. So I'll probably be close to that again, unfortunately, for Italy.
Yeah, I think England, France. I think that's going to be a very tasty one, because I think France are favourites, but England will be up for it like a lot more than they have been, I'd say. So
they always are, aren't they? And they always are. It's a big one, and often England have got the better of France when they haven't been having such a good season. But France are a little bit different now. The old descriptions of them as being flaky, or what France is going to turn up, and all them sort of negative stereotypes seem to be gone.
Yeah,
they're now just a very solid side, very strong up front, and good, best halfbacks in the world, best scrum half anyway in Dupont, and some really exciting talent outside. But the big difference for them now is I think the role Sean Edwards has had with them, the effect he's had. He's given them a real sense of steel, and they're very organised, and their discipline is a lot better. So they stick to the game plan. I think they should beat England. I'd predict France there, not by a huge amount, probably 5 to 10 points. If it's more, probably 5 to 10 points.
Yeah, I'd say similar there, because I think England, they will be better than they have been, but I still think France will just have enough to get them over the line. But I mean, I think it will be a close game, and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that's all really I was wanting to cover. If that's cool, mate.
Cool, yeah.
It was lovely having you on. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. Thanks to Conor. Obviously, I'll put the link to the Ford Province Rugby page in the description for this video. But no, good to have you on, mate, and take care of yourself. Yeah.
My pleasure. Thanks, Scott. Good night.
Scott. You call me Scott? Sorry.
No, Kyle.
Oh, sorry. Misheard you. Okay. Leave that bit. Okay. Take care, Conor. Thank you.
See you, Kyle. Thanks.